Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as we clean up this flower bed on the south side of my house. So let's go. Today is April 16th, and even though I'm about 1 month from my average last frost date, there is still plenty to be done in the garden that I can do safely at this time of the year. I figured we might as well tackle this bed together. There's not a ton to be done in this bed, but there's enough that I wanted to bring you along and just show you my process for cleaning up this bed. What I'll do is I'll take you in for a before shot and go over some of the things I need to do in this bed just to get it cleaned up and ready for the season. Towards the back of the bed, you can see I have a cold frame here. And at the base of the cold frame, there are just some different weeds and leaves that just need to get cleaned up. And so I figured we'll start there and tackle that. And then right next to my walkway, towards the front of the walkway, you can see a lot of greenery right here. And that is all Dianthus. There's two different colors. There's a pink color as well as a white color. And I basically need to go through and clean up the leaves as well as just give them a good raking, just to rake them back and wake them up a little bit more. Generally, this bed is pretty clean, but still there's some weeding to be done. There's some perennials that have dropped their seeds, and this is a good time for me to go through and do some cleanup with that as well. And just any leaves that we find along the way, those will get collected. These look like weeds, but they're actually forget-me-nots. And if you've ever had forget-me-nots, you know that they self-seed everywhere. They are beautiful. They will bloom in probably within the next 3 to 4 weeks, but I do want to get them tidied up and cleaned up in this bed. So I do have a lot of the forget-me-not spread throughout the bed. There's some more over there, so we're going to tackle that as well. This right here is a rhododendron, and it's a great time of year to be fertilizing perennials. So together we're going to fertilize this. It's always a good time of year to start cleaning up my bird bath. So we're going to clean that bird bath up. And I'll basically take you in through this bed as I work in it and just show you my process for tidying everything up. It's not horrible, but there is enough work in here. I can tell you that I've cleaned out the leaves in this area here a number of times, but whenever the wind blows, the leaves do come back in here. So together we're going to carefully try to remove as many of the leaves as we can from this area. So let's get started with this project. Oftentimes when I'm working in flower beds, you'll find me with a pot and it has pre-moistened potting mix in it. And the reason I do that is when I'm working on a flower bed, if there's a perennial that has dropped its seed, I like to dig it up. And I know it takes more time doing it that way, but I'd rather try to save the plant and move it somewhere else if possible. I mean, it's a free plant, so why not? So what I'm digging up right now is forget-me-not. It's a biennial, so they basically what that means is they drop their seeds and they bloom pretty much every other year. But if you can get a good succession going, then you can basically have forget-me-nots every single year. And then clearly anything that's a weed, I'm just digging out. In case you're wondering what this is basically just drip irrigation that goes into one of my pots that stays next to my porch. And I know I mentioned that this is potting mix. It's basically old potting mix that I had in one of my window boxes. So I'm just using that, but you could definitely use garden soil if you want. And it's also an option that you can throw away any seedlings that you find along the way. It's quicker. Or you can dig them up and move them somewhere else into your garden if you know where you want them to go. So lots of options. And this right here is Creeping Jenny. So I'm also going to put this in a pot right here. And while I'm at it, I might as well show you how to divide Creeping Jenny. You can see that it's forming roots in a number of different areas along the plant here. So I can just break it like that. And I have one plant. Break it right there, another plant. I really love Creeping Jenny. I think it looks so pretty in different types of pots and containers. Okay, so this one little area of rock is all clean. So now let's get into the flower bed and start cleaning there. And in most areas, candy tuft is a nice evergreen. It's really, really pretty when it's not blooming. Here's some more forget-me-not. I've had a lot of luck with my pansies overwintering, which is really nice. But this time of year, what I want to do, even though they are budding up, is I want to cut them back because they're definitely a little on the leggy side. So in terms of cutting them back, I basically am just looking for the center or the base. But you can see, like, again, right down here is nice growth at the base. But then you have this tall, spindly, leggy piece. As much as it hurts me to cut this because it has a blossom, or I guess a bud, coming here, I am going to cut it back. It's just overall better for the plant. It will look better. It won't be leggy to start with. Same with this. There's nice growth at the base. And even though there's buds here, we're going to go ahead and cut this back. And definitely with the forget-me-not, I'm not going to save every single one. It would just take too long. So I think at this point, what I'm going to focus on is just trying to save the larger ones, the ones that look like they might bloom this year, so that I can then put them into some sort of a pot or elsewhere in my landscape. And right here, again, this right here is pansies. There's a leggy piece. And right here is a forget-me-not. As much as it would look pretty if I left these in here and I'd have some blue colors sprinkled in this bed, I want to control where that blue color is. That's why I'm digging them up for right now. And if I choose to, later on, I can put a big bunch of them in one area in this bed. It'll just have more impact that way. So that's nice and clean. I'm happy with that. And when it comes to the candy tuft, I'll show you after it's blossomed or gone by my process for cutting these back, because even the candy tuft could benefit from being cut back harder so that it has more of a compact growth habit to it for next year. But we will wait until that has gone by and bloomed. In case you're wondering what this is a bulb, and just like a daffodil or a hyacinth, it's a bulb that blooms every spring, and then the plant goes dormant, which means you don't see the leaves or the flowers anymore after everything's gone by. and it's very pretty. There's a couple of different names to it. I call it Spring Larkspur, but there's another name. I believe it's Corydalis. I'll put the name up on the screen. And I just think it's so dainty, so beautiful. I like to use this little hand rake. It is very handy with just getting in there and cleaning up all the old debris and leaf matter. We have some more pansies over here. Another forget-me-not. So right here, this nice green mat is Dianthus. And I planted all of these here towards the front of this side of the bed last year, just from divisions I had taken from my own yard. And they really have grown quite a bit since then. And what I like to do, at least to start with here, is just basically I'm combing them. I'm brushing them, I'm waking them up, and I'm trying to pull out any leaves, any debris that's fallen from the winter. Trying to pull out any dead material. And normally I would actually like to really cut this back, but it's grown so fast already that I don't want to take a chance and lose the blossoms, because this typically starts blooming in the late spring. But normally by now I would have liked to have cut this back a little bit. So we will leave it for right now. If I change my mind, I will let you know. But definitely if there are pieces that are longer and they don't look so good, now is a good time to cut those back. But boy, this is really just taken off super fast, faster than I would have liked. That's all right. In case you're wondering what these are, this is called bloodroot. And it's a super pretty white flower, early spring blooming. And usually you would find it like in a woodland garden, but I've divided and moved it around all over my yard. And I love it. I think it's so pretty. It's a little unique. It's a little different than what you normally find in a flower garden or a flower bed. Some of you are probably like, why are you removing this beautiful blue flower that will eventually bloom? If you've been watching my channel, you know I like to grow things kind of sort of in a pattern. And so having the forget-me-not randomly all over my bed just is not a look that I'm going for. But I think it does look pretty, though. I do think it looks pretty in certain beds. But I'm trying to make this bed a little bit more formal because it's right next to my walkway. So I want a little bit of control and order where plants get placed. So what I plan on doing is repeating this same process that I've shown you. And I'm just going to do this along this whole front side of this bed here. And then I can show you what it looks like when I'm all done. And before I start, I just want to show you again, you can see there's just a ton of leaves. They're hidden, but they are there. So as I work along the front of this bed here, I will just continue the same process of picking up all the leaves and cutting back the pansies, as well as just giving a nice brushing to my dianthus, and then digging up all of the forget-me-nots that I find along the way. I wanted to show you the progress that's been made so far. Again, you can see that a lot of the leaf litter has been picked up and it's looking really pretty. I'm very happy with how it's coming along. And the bloodroot is just looking beautiful. It's starting to come up over there. And the pink flowers, you know, that we talked about earlier are looking very pretty as well, the spring larkspur. And right here is a big, huge piece of candy tuft. I have a number of pieces of candy tuft in this bed, and it really needs to be cut back hard this year. So when that time comes, I will bring you along for the process. But for right now, it's budded up and it will be blooming soon. Right next to it is more of the bloodroot, and it's just looking so dainty, so pretty. One thing I wanted to point out was it was either last year or the year before last. I had the spring larkspur closer to the front of this bed, and then I moved it back, but clearly I forgot a few pieces, and there's one piece that's right here that needs to get dug up. I figured we can do that together. And even though it's blooming, I'm okay with digging it up right now because I really want to make sure that I get it this year and move it to a different place in my garden. I'm all about sacrificing blooms for the effort of digging up a spring bulb and putting it in the right place so that next year it blooms exactly where I want it to. So again, my walkway is right here, and this section right here should be all of the Dianthus. And I want this pink blossom to be back a little bit in the bed. So this one was forgotten from last year. So we're going to go ahead and do our best to dig this up. So I'm just removing the Dianthus from the base, and it appears that there should be at least 2 plants or 2 bulbs here. So you can see that there it is right there. And we're going to dig as deep as possible to try to get those bulbs. And I'm digging out from the base. I don't want to be right at the base. I want to be out a little bit. I'm just going to give it a tug. And if this breaks, if the plant breaks, the main thing is I want to get the bulbs. It looks like there's some more bulbs right here. See what we can do. Nice. So that is one plant right there, one bulb. And we got a second one. Wonderful. So now we can just kind of clean up our mess a little bit. And over time, these little gaps towards the front of this bed will fill in. So again, you can see that the Dianthus is over here, and I want the spring larkspur to just fall behind it like that. And right here is another one that must have been forgotten or left behind from last year. Again, you can see a nice big patch of it over there. Let's go ahead and dig this one out as well. So we're going to separate or move the Dianthus so we can see what we're working with here. And it appears that there should be 2 bulbs in here. One here and one there. Well, that was easy. And it's always a good time right now. I might as well just, you can see that they are stuck together. So I'm just going to go ahead and carefully divide them. And now we have 2 more bulbs. I'm going to show you where we're going to plant these. We might as well get them in the ground in their permanent location. I recently worked on this front flower bed. I'm very pleased with how it's looking. And in here, there's a lot of bloodroot that's just starting to come up. There's also these patches right here, which are a grape hyacinth. You can see that there's a big patch of larkspur there. There's a smaller patch here. And there's some patches, even though it's sunny, they're out this way. I don't have as much of the larkspur coming out this way here. And I want to make sure that I expand that pattern. So we're going to go ahead and just plant them over in this bare section down over here. When it comes to the depth of a lot of your spring bulbs, you want to make sure you're burying them deep enough, but not too deep. So about 2 to 3 times deeper than the size of the bulb. But honestly, I don't get too hung up on it. I've had a lot of success just moving things around, and I can tell that I just don't want it to be too shallow or too deep. And I'm planting these knowing very well that possibly tomorrow or the day after, they might not look as good. And that is totally fine with me. The goal was to clean up that space where we moved them from, and while we were at it, to extend the pattern that's going on in the front walkway bed here. It's amazing how quickly these bulbs multiply. really a lot of the spring bulbs. And there's a stray guy or two over here. While we're at it, we're going to dig them up because they're stuck right in the middle of this perennial that I put here last year, probably not knowing that the spring bulb was here. So we're going to dig this up and just move them over here. Okay, so before we head away from this bed, remember our plan. We're going to add some more spring larkspur in this area here. I just space it out. I use my feet and I just kind of measure along the way. So it's basically about 5 feet or so is what I measured. And another day I'll come out here and I'll wait. I'll wait till these have gone by more and I will just divide these bigger clumps and just move them along. And that's basically how I do a lot of when I garden. I just look at what's missing for colors and just keep moving the plants around, keep dividing. All right, let's go back to our other project. See this super pretty grape hyacinth, the purple color or blue color? I originally had a whole clump of them over here under the section here. And there are still some little babies down in here, little baby bulbs. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to dig those out as well because I don't want any in this area. I mostly have some hosta growing in here. So I'm going to show you just my process for digging those up and we'll get those moved as well. Boy, it's super hard to get in here and show you what I want to show you, but they're like literally little blades of grass. So I will start digging and then I'll just show you what I'm digging. I could leave these here and let them get bigger, but since I see them right now, I figure let me at least try to get a few of them out. And each year, I know that there might be a few more that were left behind, and I'll just keep at it and keep trying to get these grape hyacinths out of here. Let me dig a few out and then I'll show you what they look like. They're super tiny. And these are clearly just little baby bulbs that were left behind. But it's a good time of year to be doing these types of things because what will happen again with the spring bulbs is they eventually become dormant. And then once they become dormant, you won't find them again. You can mark it and come back to it, but I know myself, I won't come back to it. So it's either now or leave it and come back to it next year. And whichever ones I don't collect this year, I'll go after next year. I remember working in this area last year and literally just, it was like digging for gold, looking for little tiny bulbs because they really are pretty small. There, you can see them. They're very, very, very small. So I'm just looking for the blades of grass or what looks like grass. And again, these are just baby grape hyacinths and I'm trying to pull them out because I used to have a big cluster of them here. So let me just finish digging as many of these as I can and then we're just going to get them planted somewhere else. Okay, so we're literally not going to go very far when it comes to planting all of the little goodies that we just collected, which are all of these here. I planted a bunch of the grape hyacinths towards the front of these daffodils here last year, and that's why they look a little sparse. So we might as well just add some more towards the front here. And over time, this will look really, really pretty. Some of these bulbs are definitely larger than some of the other bulbs. And that tells me that there's a possibility that these might bloom next year, which is exciting. And again, they're only going in a couple of times larger than the size of the bulb. They don't go in very deep at all. And actually, you can tell where it's a light color, it should go about that deep. I love spring bulbs, and I really just want to have color all over my yard in the springtime. So I'm looking for the colors that I have to work with in my yard. I have a lot of the pink. I have from the Spring Larkspur. I have a lot of this purple or blue color from the Grape Hyacinth. lots of yellow, different types of yellow, different shades from the daffodils. And then I have the Snow on the Mountain, and that's super pretty. And that's like another shade of a bluish purple color, more of a blue color, I'd say. And then there's like a dark purple and some pinks from my hyacinths. And even though it's not a bulb, there's the white that comes from the bloodroot. So those are colors that I can play with and move around my yard. And those are things that I'm always looking out for this time of year. And I do the same thing throughout the year with all my other plants that are blooming. I could definitely go out and buy more plants, and I will buy more plants, but I really want to just keep dividing plants that I have. It's a nice, cheap way to get that color in the yard. Some of these are really, really small, like that one there. Super small. It might not bloom for another year or two, and that's fine. I also try to make mental notes of, okay, I have all these bulbs here. So when it comes to planting things in my garden, I just need to be mindful of this. I don't want to be disturbing all these bulbs. But we must have dug up probably at least 20 bulbs, which is exciting. If you're planning on moving some of your bulbs, I'd love to know what kind of bulbs you have and which ones you're planning to move. And why are you moving them? Are you moving them because you just want to have more around your yard? Or are you moving them because they're not in a good place or a good location? So if you can drop a comment down below and let me know, I'd love to hear from you. Last year, I had dug a whole bunch of this grape hyacinth. And not only did I put some here, I put it all around my yard. And it's just coming up in other areas. Here, it's definitely sunnier, so this was the first place for this to come up. But I'm excited. I'm finding all these places where I totally forgot I had planted them last year. And you wait, in another 2 years, they'll look even prettier. In another 3 years, they'll even look prettier. And then they'll give me plenty of stock to divide from and move over the next number of years. That's what's super exciting about doing it this way. Okay, I have patience, but not that much patience. These guys are super tiny. So I'm just going to get them planted, and then we're going to keep moving on. One thing that I'm really trying to focus on this year is when I tackle a bed, to really spend my time and do it right. I don't want to rush it so that I have to visit that bed again the next week to redo the weeding. I want to spend the time, and even if it takes me a long time, and really do it right so that maybe I can enjoy it for a number of weeks before I have to revisit it and weed it again. So this bed is definitely taking me longer than I had anticipated, but I'm okay with that because I know that it's going to be worth it in the end. On this side of the bed, the main thing left to do is just put the irrigation lines in a little bit. I just need to dig a trench beneath them and bury them a little bit more. I am planning on getting mulch this year. I haven't gotten mulch in a number of years, so I am planning to put mulch in my flower beds this year, which I think will look really nice. And I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do in this space yet. So I'm going to leave that open for now, and I think I'll surprise you later in the season with what we end up putting in that section there. You know, I originally was digging out each and every one of those forget-me-nots. And boy, that was tedious. And the funny thing is, I have a big, huge patch of the forget-me-nots just behind my barn. So I gave up and I just threw them away. I dug them and threw them away. And you know what? It's okay to do that sometimes. You can't save every single plant. That's what I'm learning. Even though I want to, it would just take forever to try to save every single plant. So I finally stopped that mission, knowing that I have another area of forget-me-nots that I can pull from if I need to. because time is of the essence and I want to get this job done today so I can move on to another job. Amongst these daffodils, up close to the rock, are a ton of sea holly seedlings. I had sea holly in this bed. It dropped its seeds, and I ended up with a ton of seedlings. And that's what all of these are. And they go basically all the way around the rock on this side behind me. And if you have sea holly or know anything about sea holly, then you would know that sea holly does not like to be moved. It does not like to be dug up simply because it has a large taproot. Well, my intent is not to keep all the sea holly around this rock. It might look pretty. It hasn't bloomed for me yet because this will only be their, I believe, second season. But I would prefer not to have all the sea holly around this rock. So at some point, my goal is to dig those up. But I told myself I'm not going to do it today because just doing that job alone would take a long time. So I know that springtime is a great time to dig up perennials, move them, divide them. But springtime's also a great time to be doing a ton of other jobs in the yard. So for this year, or at least for right now, I'm going to leave all these sea holly here, which of course means that their taproot will get larger. And that's fine. When the time comes, we'll tackle that project together. I love this flower bed. This is a flower bed that gets pretty much full sun. And I don't have a lot of full sun in my yard. And every year I struggle with what I want to do with this bed. It's constantly a work in progress. I have drip irrigation in this bed. It was put down a number of years ago, probably I'd say 8 or 9 years ago. I'm sure that it wasn't done exactly how I wanted it done, simply because at the time I didn't have that many plants in this bed, and now there's a lot of plants here. So at some point, not this year, or at least not in the spring, at some point I'd love to redo this bed. But right now the goal is to just keep it clean, keep it weeded, and add some beautiful things to it so it looks nice for this year. And as many times as I clean these leaves out of this area here, on a windy day, I'm sure some more leaves will come back in here, and that's fine. I'll just come back out and pull the leaves out. But while all of this beautiful color is happening, I want to really enjoy it. So I definitely want these leaves out of here. Another perennial that's right near my feet and also has a very big taproot is false indigo or baptisia. And that's another one that I would love to have moved from this area. At least I don't want it like right up next to the rock. But boy, that's going to be a beast to remove. So for this year, we will enjoy it. When it blooms, I'll show you. It's such a pretty plant. I think weeding and just cleaning out flower beds is such a satisfying feeling. When you think about it, how many things in life can we do that give us this satisfying feeling like gardening does? I've never been much of an artist, but I find when it comes to gardening, it really is almost like art. When you think of all the textures and the colors and combining them together. I find even with gardening, which I don't find this feeling with a lot of other things in my life, that I'm always looking forward to the next season, the next thing. I mean, it's literally just spring. Things are just barely starting to pop out of the ground here and bloom, and yet I'm already making plans for next year. My husband jokes and says, well, when are we going to go on vacation? I tell you, being in the garden is kind of like a vacation. You get away from other things in your life, and it's very relaxing, very therapeutic. At least it is to me. I just love, love, love. Look at that, the white of the bloodroot. If you don't have bloodroot, consider it. And look at the combination of the bloodroot and then the daffodils, which, I look at them and yes, I love to divide a lot of things, but I think that these probably would benefit from a good division. But you look at the yellow daffodil, the white of the bloodroot, and then glory of the snow. Look how pretty that combination is. And of course, let's not forget the pretty blue of the grape hyacinth. I thought that having this color of purple or blue next to this color might not look good, but I'm enjoying it. I think they look nice together. Well, I would say we did pretty well today. The only other things that I would do if I had a little bit more time today would be bury the irrigation lines, which I will probably do within the next day or so, as well as maybe a tiny bit more weeding in here. And it's not necessarily weeds, it's more perennials that have just dropped their seeds. And I could go in here and clean it up, but I've decided I'm going to leave this because I want to see what comes up. And based on what comes up and where it's located, then I can go ahead and move perennials around in here. So I decided I'm going to keep that as is. Over here is a nice tall grass or a miscanthus. And as most grasses, what happens is it starts to die out, typically where the original part of the plant was. And it will have like new growth on the side of it, but one side of it might be dead. So I do need to come in here and dig this up, and I would like to divide it and move some of it around in other parts of my yard. So that will be another project for another day. There's also some irrigation lines that are exposed on the top level here, and I have to figure out what I want to do, if I want to cap them, if I want to close them off. So I left those there for right now as well. And even though my intent for today was to really cut these back hard, which is what I did last spring, I decided not to cut them back too hard today for the simple reason that they've put on a lot more growth than I wanted them to have at this time of year. Things are just growing super fast and I don't want to cut off the blossoms. And so I just went through and really raked them out really well just to wake them up, pull out any dead material. And I think they are going to look great for this season. So again, I will eventually come in here, bury these lines. I need to figure out what I'm going to put in here. It might be some pots with flowers. It might be some annuals. So we'll have to figure that out. And then I'll eventually come in here and put a nice layer of mulch. Last spring, together we divided this Dianthus. It was one big patch, and we were able to get a bunch of pieces out of it. And that Dianthus goes all the way down this way here. And it's a different color. I'm almost sure it's a light pink color. And then we'll have the hot pink Dianthus, which is a different kind of Dianthus than that one. And then we'll have white Dianthus. This is going to look really pretty in the springtime, later in the spring, of course. I just think that looks so pretty. And we did clean the bird bath. So everything is nice and fresh and ready to go for the springtime. Very exciting. I wanted to point out, we have this Dianthus here. Right behind it is a purple colored mum, and that blooms in the late summer, early fall time. And the best time for me to go ahead and divide that is actually right now. So again, on a different day, we will come in here and we will divide this mum that's here, as well as another patch of a mum over there, same color. And what I'm thinking I'd like to do is when we divide it, I think we're just going to divide and move it along in here so that we have some nice clumps going, because right now we only have two larger clumps. Might as well fill it up in this bed as well. That would be really nice for, again, the fall color, to have some fall interest in here. It feels so good to be out here working in the yard, and I'm very happy to be able to share these type of videos with you. I hope that they inspire you. I hope that these type of videos give you ideas. And I'll continue making videos like this one as I work in different flower beds. I find it really important to me to share with you my thought process on what I'm planning for, why I do what I do, things that I like, things that I don't like, things that I'm looking for when it comes to um, different interests for season, for color, for height. I think all of that is really important to share with you. So one thing that I didn't do it for this video, but I do plan on doing over the next day or two, is giving a slow release fertilizer to all my perennials in this bed here. And what I'm going to be using is just 10-10-10. And I know some people are okay using it. Other people prefer to use something else. So you want to use whatever fertilizer you feel comfortable with. I know that Plant Tone is one that's quite popular. The key is you want to make sure you're fertilizing your perennials. The springtime is a great time to do it. My mother-in-law always used 10-10-10, and her gardens were absolutely gorgeous. So I trust what she used to use, and I feel comfortable using the 10-10-10. So I will be just doing a very light dressing around like each of my Dianthus. But you want to make sure when you do fertilize, especially if you're going to use something like 10-10-10, you want to make sure you're not doing it right at the base of the plant. You want to be out a little bit from the plant, and then after that, I'll just scratch it in. And then if we don't have any rain, I can go ahead and just water all the plants that I've given fertilizer to. And I've never fertilized my bulbs. And so that's something that I'm also going to be fertilizing. I've read different things. I've read that sometimes you can fertilize in the spring just as the plants are starting to emerge. I've also heard that you can fertilize as soon as the blossoms have gone by, because the plants are feeding the bulbs at that time. That's very likely what I'm going to do. I'm just going to wait until all of these have gone by, and then I will give them a little bit of fertilizer. And I will probably just give them 10-10-10 again. And the key is I don't want to cut any of the bulbs back. I want to wait. So after all the blossoms go by, I will come in and I will deadhead the plants. I will cut off just the blossom, not the whole stem that the blossom's on, but just the blossom, so that it puts all its energy into the bulbs. And then I will wait. And I will wait about 6 weeks until all of this foliage has died back. And at that point, then it's okay to cut back the leaves. Normally the leaves turn brown, but I know from experience in this particular bed that these leaves never turn brown. And I think it's because there's irrigation at each of the bulbs, like right at the base of the bulbs. So I'm just going to wait about 6 weeks. And then after 6 weeks, I can just go ahead and cut all of these back. So thank you again for joining me today as I worked in this flower bed. And until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.